How's it going, folks? Welcome back to another transfer special. We've already done some business, some players are left, there's 132 million to spend. No messing around today. Let's get into this. Now, of course, it goes without saying, if you didn't see yesterday's end of season episode, make sure to go watch that right now. It was an absolute classic. Today we are back with a transfer special ahead of season number 3. As I've already alluded to, we've done a little bit of business. It is the 3rd of July in game, and the reason that we're starting on the 3rd of July and not the 1st is definitely not down to my recording failing to record the last 2 days. So let's talk about the transfers we've done so far, because there has been players leave on the out, and we've made some pretty good money. James Tarkowski has departed for Bournemouth, sold for £5 million. 18 months he spent at the club, didn't ever perform that well. Nice to make some money on a player who I feel like we've already got covered with a replacement. Elsewhere, Saint-Maximin has left for Tottenham, sold for £40 million, and it's a bit of a bittersweet moment. At the end of the day, he's a good player, but he's not a great player, and given where we're going, given the quality of players we have, I just don't see a world where he ever plays for us regularly. When you compare him to the likes of Musiala, you can see there is just a world of difference between Saint-Maximin and other players we have in the same position. To get 40 million for him as well, I think it's some pretty good business. I'm sorry to the Geordies out there. I feel like some of you are going to be a little bit gutted to see a fan favourite leave. Elsewhere, Jacob Murphy has left us to go to Bournemouth. He was out on loan with them last year. And most recently, Callum Wilson has headed to Rennes, of all places, sold for £9 million. Didn't score a single goal in 5 appearances this season just gone. I think to get £9 million for a 31-year-old who is almost certainly going to lose is one aspect to his game that really stands out in his pace in the coming years, is quite a good bit of business. Now on the ins, we have made some moves fairly early on. The first of the players is Kerr Smith, who we've picked up from Dundee. 18 years old, young centre-back for the future, just shy of £10 million paid. He's currently on loan back at Dundee. I might recall him from the loan. I'm not sure if this is a good loan move or not. Ultimately, he's a good little player for the future. For less than £10 million, I think he's a good investment. Of course, another young British defender who has joined us is Ben Godfrey. We talked about this guy last episode, but just as a refresher, relegated with Everton, available for £24 million. And whilst he hasn't had too good of a years at Everton, I just think in terms of quality of player, for the price that we're paying, and of course with the bonus of the fact he's English and homegrown kind of nation, it's a really good bit of business to get him done for this price. There is one other player we've signed from Norwich City, Tim Krul. Yeah, I've brought back a fan favourite. The reason for doing this is he's homegrown at club. We might need him this year because I have got some grand plans when it comes to potentially loaning out a couple of youngsters who this year just didn't quite play enough in the first team. So with those early bits of transfer business done, this is the squad for the year at the moment. Now, I talked about the kind of goalkeeping situation, bringing in Tim Krul. Naturally, we don't need 4 goalkeepers. I'm hoping to loan out Van der Voort for this coming year, give him some regular first team football. That way, Tim Krul becomes our 3rd choice keeper, with Woodman then being our kind of backup. I think he could do an okay job if we really need him to do. And I just feel like Van der Voort needs regular first-team football to develop. So that's one of the orders of business for today. As we look through the rest of the team, a few other players who are potentially on their way out, the likes of Jamal Lascelles, we've actually accepted a bid for. Defensively this year, we were really good. In fact, defensively, it was one of our big kind of standout aspects. If we just look at goals against here, only 30 goals against in the year, which actually doesn't seem like that smaller amount, but compared to all the other teams in the league, that was a good return. Of course, Godfrey has joined us. As you're going to come to see, there's a couple more defenders I'm looking at. If I do go on to sign these players, we might look to move on kind of some squad players. The likes of Hickey, Michaelenko has had a little bit of interest in him. I did offer him out. He's unhappy. I offered him out. But I don't know. I look at a player like Michaelenko. He's fine, but if a bid of 50 million came in, I might be a little bit tempted by it. Higher up the pitch and into the midfield, I would like to add a little bit more quality into the centre of midfield. I already have a couple of targets lined up for that. And in terms of our striking options, we have really good striking options. We have the likes of Adeyemi, Barbosa, Ransdorf Yeboah, Calvert-Lewin. I don't really feel a need to get in any more strikers. Of course, if the right player came up, I might still make a bid. But it's the one area of the pitch where I feel settled. And that might seem counterintuitive because last year we didn't really score enough goals in the Premier League compared to what perhaps would be expected of us. You can see here we scored the 6th most But I don't think that was a reflection of our individuals. I think that was more a reflection of our inability to break down teams who play a back three, teams that kind of play a very defensive system against us. We did relatively well against the bigger clubs. There were small teams that caused us issues, and that's something that I think we need to address tactically going into the next year. So I've talked a little bit there about the positions I want to improve. We have got some early transfer business going on. Declan Rice has agreed a contract with us. It's not a small contract. It is £100,000 for 42 million that could rise as high as 68 million. But I do see him as a really high quality player. In terms of where he would slot in, I think he would come in to be our ball winning midfielder. This year we had Zakaria and Tolisso, and they were kind of the two defensive midfielders. I talked about it earlier on in the year. I feel like we need to inject a bit of quality into that particular part of the pitch. I think Declan Rice could be that man. He's not the most athletic. He's not particularly quick or strong. I guess, no, that he is strong. He's not got good balance or agility, has Rice. And I just look at him and I think as the ball winning midfielder in our system, he could do a really, really good job. Potentially playing ball winner on support or defend, has the mentals for it, has really good passing range, which I think with our slightly direct style of play could suit us quite well to have a midfielder who can really pick out some balls. Lacking a little bit in the physicals department when it comes to his pace, but to be honest, it's not like he's slow, it's just that his mental aspects and his defensive aspects of his game are so good, it kind of makes everything else look a little bit worse. Elsewhere, Livramento has just had a bid accepted on him of £20 million, so we're going to be going into the contract negotiations there. Of course, we talked about this guy last year. I don't really need another defender, but for £20 million for one of the best young English defenders, it just feels like a little bit of a no-brainer. He can play on the right, he can play on the left, he can play down at centre-back as well. He's super versatile. I think if we can get it done for 20 million, it just makes sense. Now, there is one transfer I'm umming and I'm ahhing about. And the reason I'm umming and ahhing is because I've already delayed it once. I have the option to sign him today. Ferland Mendy, 28 years old, for £39 million. Now, 39 million, I think for him is a good bit of business. He's only just turned 28. He has had some issues with injuries, and it pains me to say this, he wants £200,000 a week. That's a lot of money. It would kind of nuke my wage budget to the point where suddenly a load of other key players in the team will feel massively underpaid. But if we just compare him to Mykolenko, you can just see how bigger an upgrade he is on Mykolenko and why, if a bid of 50 million came in for Mykolenko, I might be open to the option of selling him. I don't think I can do it. I think if Livramento is done for 20 million, Ferland Mendy at 40 million on just stupid wages, just feels a bit silly, especially for the long-term effects it will have, because in Football Manager, players do look at one another and how much they're earning and start to, wonder what their value is at the club. And as soon as we offer Ferland Mendy £200,000, I feel like Pandora's box is open. Suddenly everyone's going to want new deals. And when you look at the likes of Calvert-Lewin, who got a new deal this year and was on 120,000, I feel like I don't really want to go too much higher than that, at least in one big leap. Now, speaking of new contracts, Musiala potentially on his way out. We have had a bid of from Barcelona of 40 million. I rejected it. He has a release clause of 95 million. I've given him a new contract offer. It still has a release clause in it, but it is 105 million. So we'd make a little bit more money if we have to sell him. Really, I'm offering him a new contract because he wants to stay here, even if it has a release clause. I'm hoping it's just going to deter teams putting bids in for him this summer. So anyway, that's where we're at going into this transfer special. In terms of the squad, this is what my best 11 would be. Of course, I'm relatively happy with this team. I think if we got in Declan Rice, that would be fantastic. Elsewhere, Martinez didn't wow me this year at left centre-back. So if a decent bid came in, I might be open to selling him. We have offered him out a little bit, but not really had any great bids for him just yet. Did not have a particularly good year at wide centre-back. And I do wonder how much that was just down to his lack of pace. I feel like, in general, with wide centre-backs, as we've discovered with Musiala, pace seems to be a really important aspect in terms of getting up the pitch and doing the job. There is a world in which, potentially, we move Ben Godfrey into the team. Because he's right-only footedness, we'd play him at right centre-back. And then we play Musiala on the left, even though his preferred foot is right, because it's not right only. That's something that I'm maybe open to the idea of doing. I really, really like Ben Godfrey. At the moment, for 24 million, I don't feel a massive amount of pressure to start him game to game, just because I think he's a pretty good player to be on the bench. But nevertheless, when you compare the two players here, not a world of difference, and Martinez just didn't do very well. So we might end up signing another centre-back today, which might seem mental. I think if we get Declan Rice in, that immediately adds some quality into the centre of midfield alongside Musiala, who I'm already thinking for this year we're going to play as a box-to-box midfielder rather than Musiala. Elsewhere, not completely against the idea of replacing Thiago Almada if the right bid came in, although he did have a pretty good year this year. Of course, we've got a lot of money to spend, 132 million. I don't think I'm going to sign Ferland Mendy. But even if we cancel that one, we're looking at about £62 million spent if we can get in Livramento and Declan Rice. That still leaves us with £70+ million to spend. So yeah, there's quite a lot that's going to happen this summer. Let's see how we get on as we get into this. Okay, this is kind of big. I'm hitting the cancel button. I'm not going to sign Ferland Mendy. If it was lesser wages, I'd be on board. I hope I'm not going to live to regret this decision. Okay, good news. Our offer for Livramento's been accepted. It looks like he doesn't want the craziest contract either, so this makes me feel pretty good. If we could sign him on £60,000 a week, I'd be a happy bunny. Don't do it to me, Tino. Just 60,000. There we go. 5-year deal, £60,000 for 20 million. I think that's really smart. Okay, Arsenal have made a Musiala bid. It's not a good enough bid in my book. 65 million they're offering. I think that's less than what we paid for him 2 years ago. In fact, it's slightly more, but we paid 60 million for him. He has developed since then. He is a better player now than he was when we bought him. I think anything less than his release clause would be mad. I mean, the big headline really is he's quite happy to stay at the club. You can see here he has no interest in joining Arsenal, so I'm just going to reject it. Hopefully he stays. Elsewhere, Declan Rice, 48 million. I think I've got to confirm this one. He is really good in Football Manager. Can also slot in at centre-back if we need him to. I think he is as good a midfielder as realistically we're going to get in terms of English player, homegrown in nation, and as mad as it might be to say, I think for 68 million, 48 of which is up front, we're not overpaying too much for him. Just to clarify, when I say I don't think we're paying too much for him, I am of course talking for an English player. The English tax that you have to pay for English players after Brexit in Football Manager is kind of mad. I mean, he's now valued between 132 and 145 million, and I feel like he slots quite nicely into our midfield. He is definitely a missing piece of the puzzle. I'm hoping he's just going to live up to my expectations now. And with that, Declan Rice also becomes our record transfer. £3 million more than what we paid for Calvert-Lewin in season number 1. I feel like with him now at the club and also the prospect of Livramento joining us, I need to try and offload some players. I mean, we need to see who's got interest in them, who I want to sell. Potentially players like Loftus-Cheek. Maybe Emerson Royal. Would it be harsh to bin him off after half a year that he's had with us, where he's played quite well? I mean, maybe a tiny bit. I feel like there's no harm in offering him out. If Livramento's joining us for 20 million, I don't need Mbabu, Emerson Royal, Musiala, and Livramento. I mean, worst case scenario, I have all 4 of them, and our squad of depth is incredible. I just think it might be worth cashing in on a player, even if they're going to hate me for it. And the good news is that Livakovic is very influential, and he has convinced Emerson that actually, maybe we're not forcing him out, even though we definitely are. Now, it has been brought to my attention that Lewandowski is available on a free. He's been released by Bayern. Should we offer him a trial? Does he actually want to talk to us? I mean, if he does, I mean, he's coming on. We've got Lewandowski on trial. This could be the greatest transfer ever. Apparently, he's a star player who might be past his best. He actually wants to talk to me. He wants to be a star player. He wants £275,000 for a year. But it is Lewandowski. Am I seriously considering this? You know what? I think the plan is he's on trial for 4 weeks. We'll keep him around and see if he lowers his expectations if no one else comes in for him. I don't really want to pay him more than £150,000 a week. I've just cancelled signing Ferland Mendy because I want to preserve the wage budget. And now Lewandowski's appeared and I'm just considering nuking it all and just signing him anyway. Okay, so Livramento is happy to join the club. I don't really need him, but I just think for £20 million, he's too good a player to just miss out on the opportunity to pick up. As we mentioned, he can play left back, he can play centre back. So, you know, at worst case scenario, he's going to be a little useful little squad player. At 20 years old, though, I think he has a really, really bright future. You might be wondering, Jack, why wouldn't you try and offer out Mbabu, you know, with Livramento joining? Of course, Mbabu, just as a reminder, is homegrown at club. We have to have 4 of those players for Europe. So Mbabu's kind of untouchable. But as you can see here, Livramento is going to offer some pretty good competition in that area of the pitch. And if we compare him with Emerson, it's kind of obvious. He's quite a big upgrade. I just need to get rid of Emerson Royal now. Okay, I don't want to panic too much. Musiala's release clause has been triggered by Barcelona. They have bid £95 million. He has a contract offer on the table. I'm hoping he's going to stay. If he does leave us, I do have a backup plan. And if you're wondering who that backup plan is, it's Jude Bellingham. Yeah, I think the plan would be Musiala out, Jude Bellingham in. Apparently available for £104 million. So if Musiala leaves for £95 million, I mean, Jude Bellingham is just the logical replacement, right? I mean, Jude Bellingham is debatably a more complete player, and playing in the centre of a midfield alongside Declan Rice, there's kind of part of me that wants Musiala to accept this move. Is that, should I admit that aloud? There is also part of me wondering, I wonder if we could sign Jude Bellingham using various contract clauses, because there's no one else coming in. Lascelles is still possibly on his way out. We still have £63 million to spend. With instalments, I could just sign Jude Bellingham anyway. I mean, imagine Musiala attacking mid and Jude Bellingham and Rice in behind. I still feel like left back maybe needs an upgrade though. Mykolenko was good this year. Wasn't great. Right now, excluding Lewandowski, our first team squad is 29 players. That's without Van der Voort going out either. Before I sign anyone else, I really need to start moving some players on, or at least just loaning out some players. I'm hoping that Emerson is going to be movable, but at the moment, no one is nibbling. Okay, Jamal Lascelles is leaving. He's been a loyal servant, was of course one of the few players in our first year who kind of survived the initial cull of kind of regular first team players who were already at the club. This last year, he's played 2 games. He's just not very good anymore. At 29 years old, he is far away from what we need. In terms of the hierarchy, players have naturally climbed up, the likes of Livakovic, Calvert-Lewin and Tomori. We have some established leaders. You know what? He's been a good servant. It's time to move him on, though. Okay, so Musiala, potentially on his way out, but he's actually come back to us and asked, would we offer him a bit more money in order for him not to go to Barcelona? He's asking for £150,000 a week with a release clause of £106 million. I don't really want to pay him too much more than our current highest earners, which means offering 120. But, I mean, it's kind of apparent that he wants 150. So then it becomes a case of, am I happy signing Musiala for that price, £150,000, knowing that he's got a release clause that is only 11 million higher. So he wants a £50,000 a week wage rise. That works out about £2.5 million more a year we're paying him. And with it, he's committed his long-term future to the club. He's delighted to be working under me due to his admiration. That's right, Jamal Musiala has just turned down Barcelona to stay at Newcastle. He's bought into the project. How can anyone not believe in me now? I would still quite like Jude Bellingham, though. So I decided to be a bit cheeky and bid 50 million. They've turned that down. He has a release clause of 104 million. Should we just ask the board if they'll sign Jude Bellingham for me? Bellingham would cost far too much. I mean, they're not wrong. We have £64 million in the bank. What if we bid 50 million now, and then over the next 3 years, I'll give you 60... I can't give them 60 million. Can I give them 60 million? No, I can't. Right. 50 million up front, 50 million after over 3 years. Take it or leave it. They're almost certainly going to leave it, aren't they? Breaking news. They've left it. What if I give you the 104 million? His release clause. No, they want it all up front. I mean, Jude Bellingham would be a great signing. Just not quite affordable, even with all the money that we have. I'm a bit annoyed. We've got players like Martinez here who are listed as wanted by a few different teams, but then when I offer him out for an unspecified price, no one even bids on him anyway. We really are struggling to shift players on at the moment. I don't want to get too carried away with pre-season, But I think this means that we're going to win the league. Lewandowski, who's in on trial, did score for us. Maybe he is worth the money. Has he changed his demands yet? He's lowered it by £25,000. Need him to lower it a little bit more over the next few months, please, Robert. I think this kind of ruins the dream of signing Lewandowski. Real Madrid have given him a contract offer. So we're now like 3 weeks into this transfer window where I've really actively been trying to get rid of players. I am not getting any bids on players. I mean, Lewandowski, just put him down in the under-23s now. Yeah, I mean, Van der Voort, no one wants him in on loan. Players like Emerson Royal, no one is bidding on them. Even the players who are wanted, like Lisandro Martinez, I'm still actively offering out and we're just not getting any bids in. And I'm in this very awkward predicament where, I mean, the league season starts in a little over a month, and I feel scared to sign anyone until I get rid of anyone, because our squad was already quite big, and it's now sat with 29 players in it. I don't really know what to do. I mean, I guess the logical thing would be for the likes of Hickey, MB, and Ransford Yeboah just to demote them to the under-23s where they can play, but really I want to loan them out, and in themselves they can be good squad players. I feel like these are the kind of players that I'm happy to have in the team on the very, very fringes as kind of the backups. It's players where I directly maybe want to sign a replacement like Lisandro Martinez, like potentially Michaelenko at left back, where in order to replace them, I feel like I've got to get rid of one of the big earners who's already playing in that position. And at the moment, there's just not really any interest. One other player I'm currently looking at possibly signing, and that is Luca Digne, who, of course, has just been relegated with Everton. He'd be a really good left-back option potentially for us. Probably an upgrade on Michaelenko. He is slightly older, aged 30, but he's available for £6 million. And I think for that kind of sum of money, it's a bit of a no-brainer to pick him up. Great at set pieces. We lack that a little bit. Yes, he's just been relegated. He's not a super long-term option. But I think for £6 million, it's a low-risk investment that has a massive, massive upside. That's right, I'm back on the Jude Bellingham page. I'm just making a non-negotiable offer that has to be responded to tomorrow of 70 million, because I've just read in the papers there's been a big fight at Dortmund. He's trying to force a move, is Jude. So we're going to do our business and just, throw a bit of petrol on the fire, try and get the explosion really going by just making a bid that I expect them to reject, but hopefully we'll force them into a situation where he gets transfer listed by request. Also, just general life advice. Don't throw petrol on bonfires. It won't have the desired effects. It's dangerous. Just PSA out there for anyone getting any ideas from what I suggest. Which, to be honest, if you're listening to me for ideas, that's an error in itself. So the Bellingham bid's been rejected. We're going to cancel the offer and just hope that he starts to kick up a storm. And maybe we get him for cheap. That's the dream. Okay, I might live to regret this because I'm signing a player without getting rid of anyone, which I already knew was a problem. We're just going to make it more of a problem. Luca Digne has joined us. He is signed for £6 million. It's not a lot of money. If we just compare him to Michaelenko, who of course is our left back of choice last year, you can see the head-to-head comparison. Luca is just a way more complete player. Not perhaps quite as athletic, not quite as fast, but from set pieces, he's way better. His delivery of the ball's better. His mentals are better. That, of course, comes with the caveat that he has just turned 30 years old, but for £6 million. If he can just play better than he has for Everton, it's a bargain. And if he doesn't play better than he has for Everton, it's only £6 million we've lost. It's fine, right? Right. I'm trying to convince myself. I still need to get rid of players or start demoting players. I'm looking at the likes of Aaron Hickey thinking, you're not going to be playing this year in the first team. Similar story with players like MB, potentially. I still need to get rid of Van der Voort as well. There is just players who I need to get rid of, and I can't. And it's annoying because it's now the 1st of August. Pre-season's nearly over. What a weird pre-season this has ended up being. This, I think, is the team for the coming season. I've got some plans, as I said, for how I want to adapt things against weaker opposition, changing up the shape fairly significantly, really adding a new dimension to our play. But we'll talk more about whatever this is, I think, next time. The season starts in about a week and a half. I still have a lot of players that ideally I'd like to get rid of. I mean, from a squad perspective, 27 players isn't too bad, I suppose. It's just more a case of there are players here who I kind of wanted to get rid of and haven't been able to. That said, we've made some moves in the market. Luca Digne, Livramento, Declan Rice, 3 players of some pretty good quality. The combined outlay of those, £94 million. When you consider, obviously, Callum Wilson left us, Tarkowski left for £5 million, and St. Maximin left for 40. We've not spent a monumental amount of money here, mostly because I want to keep the wage budget in check, but also I don't want to build too bigger a team too soon. I feel like we've added some nice quality, though, in some areas that needed it. I think our team is looking better than ever before. I think the depth is really exemplified by just the number of 3-star players we have in terms of current ability in our team. And this is a squad that has a pretty young core to it that is only going to get better with time. Anyway, I think that is going to wrap up everything in terms of the transfer special today. I wanted to do more. I couldn't really do more. But let me know what you made of our transfer business anyway. Brentford and Tottenham, the 2 games coming your way. A rematch against St. Maximin, who of course just departed the club for £40 million. Looking at the season preview, the media have us in 5th. We are going to look to exceed those expectations with a Champions League campaign and of course Champions League qualification once more. Maybe come the end of next season. Until then, take care. I'll see you guys for the start of season 3. It is me, Jack, and I'll see you all next time. I'm out.